सिद्धांत सरस्वती महाराज की, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की, ताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, entitled Krishna is the source of all incarnations. Text 28. एते चां सकला पुंसा कृष्णस्तु भगवान् स्वयं इन्द्रारि व्याकुलं लोकं मृडयन्ति युगे युगे एते चां सकला पुंसा कृष्णस्तु भगवान् स्वयं इन्द्रारि व्याकुलं लोकं मृडयन्ति युगे युगे एते चां सकला पुंसा कृष्णस्तु भगवान् स्वयं इन्द्रारि व्याकुलं लोकं मृडयन्ति युगे युगे 132.
Translation?
No, just different words.
Okay. एते चां सकला पुंसा
कृष्णस्तु भगवान् स्वयं
इन्द्रारि व्याकुलं लोकं
मृडयन्ति युगे युगे
एते चां सकला पुंसा कृष्णस्तु भगवान् स्वयं इन्द्रारि व्याकुलं लोकं मृडयन्ति युगे युगे
Translation. All the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portion of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. In this particular stanza, Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is distinguished from other incarnations. He is counted amongst the avatars because out of His causeless mercy, the Lord descends from His transcendental abode. Avatara means one who descends. All the incarnations of the Lord, including the Lord Himself, descend on the different planets of material world as also in different species of life to fulfill particular missions. Sometimes He comes Himself and sometimes His different plenary portions or parts of the plenary portions or His differentiated portions, directly or indirectly empowered by Him, descend on this material world to execute certain specific functions. Originally, the Lord is full of all opulences, all prowess, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge and all renunciation. When they are partly manifested through the plenary portions or parts of the plenary portions, it should be noted that certain manifestations of His different powers are required for those particular functions. When in the room small electric bulbs are displayed, it does not mean that the electric powerhouse is limited by the small bulbs. The same powerhouse can supply power to operate large-scale industrial dynamos with greater volts. Similarly, the incarnation of the Lord display limited powers because so much power is needed at that particular time. For example, Lord Parshurama and Lord Narsimha displayed unusual opulence by killing the disobedient Kshatriyas 21 times and killing the greatly powerful atheist Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu was so powerful that even the demigods in other planets would tremble simply by the unfavorable raising of his eyebrow. The demigods in the higher level of material existence many times excel the most well-to-do human beings in duration of life, beauty, wealth, paraphernalia and in all other respects. Still, they were afraid of Hiranyakashipu. Thus we can simply imagine how powerful Hiranyakashipu was in the material world, in this material world. But even Hiranyakashipu was cut into small pieces by the nails of Lord Nrsimha. This means that anyone materially powerful cannot stand the strength of the Lord's nails. Similarly, Jamadagnya displayed the Lord's power to kill all the disobedient kings, powerfully situated in their respective states. The Lord's empowered incarnation Narada and the plenary incarnations Varaha, as well as indirectly empowered Lord Buddha, created faith in the mass of people. Incarnations of Rama and Dhanvantari displayed his fame, and Balarama, Mohini and Vamana exhibited his beauty. Dattatreya, Matsya, Kurma and Kapila exhibited his transcendental knowledge. Nara and Narayan Rishis exhibited his renunciation. So all the different incarnations of the Lord, indirectly or directly, manifested different features. But Lord Krishna, the primeval Lord, exhibited the complete features of Godhead, and thus it is confirmed that he is the source of all other incarnations. And the most extraordinary feature exhibited by Lord Krishna was his internal energetic manifestation of his pastimes with the covered girls. His pastimes with the gopis are all display of transcendental existence, bliss and knowledge, although these are manifested apparently as sex love. The specific attraction of his pastimes with the gopis should never be misunderstood. The Bhagavatam relates these transcendental pastimes in the 10th canto. And in order to reach the position to understand the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, the Bhagavatam promotes the student gradually in 9 other cantos. According to Srila Jiva Goswami's statements, in accordance with authoritative sources, Lord Krishna is the source of all other incarnations. It is not that Lord Krishna has any source of incarnation. All the symptoms of the Supreme Truth in full are present in the person of Lord Krishna, and in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord emphatically declares that there is no truth greater than or equal to him. In this stanza, the word Swayam is particularly mentioned to confirm that Lord Krishna has no other source than himself. Although in other places the incarnations are described as Bhagavan because of their specific functions, nowhere are they declared to be Supreme Personality. In this stanza, the word Swayam signifies the supremacy as the Samam Bonam. The Samam Bonam Krishna is one without a second. He himself has expanded himself in various parts, portions and particles as Swarupa, Swayam Prakasha, Tadekatma, Prabhava, Vaibhava, Vilasa, Avatara, Avesha and Jivas, all provided with innumerable energies just suitable for the respective persons and personalities. Learned scholars in transcendental subjects have carefully analyzed the Samam Bonam Krishna to have 64 principal attributes. All the expansions or categories of the Lord possess only some percentage of these attributes, but Sri Krishna is the possessor of the attributes cent percent, and his personal expansions such as Swayam Prakasha and Tadekatma up to the categories of the avatars who are all Vishnu Tattva possess up to 93% of these transcendental attributes. Lord Shiva, who is neither avatara nor avesha nor in between them, possesses almost 84% of the attributes. But the jivas or the individual living beings of different statuses of life possess up to the limit of 78% of the attributes. In the conditioned state of material existence, the living being possesses these attributes in very minute quantity, varying in terms of the pious life of the living being. The most perfect of living beings is Brahma, the supreme administrator of one universe. He possesses 78% of the attributes in full. All other demigods have the same attributes in less quantity, whereas human beings possess the attributes in very minute quantity. The standard of perfection for human being is to develop the attributes up to 78% in full. The living being can never possess attributes like Shiva, Vishnu or Lord Krishna. All living beings can become godly by developing the 78% transcendental attributes in fullness, but he can never become a god like Shiva, Vishnu or Krishna. He can become a Brahma in due course. The godly living beings, who are all residents of the planets in the spiritual sky, are eternal associates of God in different spiritual planets called Haridhama and Maheshadhama. The abode of Lord Krishna above all spiritual planets is called Krishna Loka or Goloka Vrindavan, and the perfected living being, by developing 78% of the above attributes in fullness, can enter the planet of Krishna Loka after leaving the present material body. ओमज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वतीदेवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशधारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्यनाम्ने गौरविषे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. I should say it's a great fortune to get to read this verse. This is one of the most important verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, this is called the Paribhasha Sutra. So, in the beginning part of my talk, I am going to explain what is this Paribhasha Sutra and why is it so important, and then we can discuss some portion of the purport as well. In fact, this particular verse can be discussed for at least a week or 10 days. And Prabhupada also gives so many things in the purport, and it is I don't have the capacity to do justice to this verse in just 40 minutes or whatever limited time. Many devotees in our disciplic succession glorified this verse so much that if you see the Krishna Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami writes pages and pages for this one verse. He gives so many explanations, he gives so much logic, he gives so much supporting statements from the scriptures only for this particular verse. And as such, as I said, this is Paribhasha Sutra. Paribhasha Sutra means, Sutra is like a formula actually. Paribhasha Sutra is a guiding principle of the entire book. These Paribhasha Sutras are available generally in the beginning of the entire book, which helps the reader understand how to see the entire book, in what context it has to be seen, in what context it has to be interpreted. So this particular verse, which says that Krishna is the source of all incarnations, and Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Prabhupada says the word Swayam signifies that. This verse, mic so that I can see. So Krishna is the source of all incarnations, and Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. So this particular verse which says this has to be understood in such a way that all the entire Bhagavatam has to be seen or interpreted through this particular verse. So that is what is called a Paribhasha Sutra. We also see such Paribhasha Sutras in other books also, like for example in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Adi Leela, first chapter, the 4th verse, Anarpita Chiram, that verse which says about the merciful nature of the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came to give something which no other incarnation has given. So that is the Paribhasha Sutra. So when we read that verse and try to understand the entire book through that verse or interpret it through that verse, that actually makes sense. That is the complete comprehensive understanding of the book. If that is missing, then there may be so many contradictions which cannot be resolved. Sometimes we can also argue that in this particular section it is said that it appears for the reader that Krishna is not the Supreme Lord, but there is somebody else. Vishnu is the Supreme Lord. Through Vishnu, Krishna is taking birth. There are so many other things. So such contradictions have to be resolved by understanding this Paribhasha Sutra, the guiding principle. So from there, if you understand, then there are no contradictions. If we miss this, then we may not get the conclusive, comprehensive understanding of the entire book. So it acts as a lens through which the entire book should be seen. Just like when I was hearing a lecture of His Holiness Mahanidhi Swami Maharaj. So he was just explaining what is this Paribhasha Sutra. He said that just like when we take a sample of blood for a blood test, we ordinary eye can see, okay, this is some red fluid, but then when you see under the microscope, you see so many or plenary portions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada also gives a very interesting analysis of the percentage of different attributes present in different tattvas. Like Krishna has 64 principal attributes, Vishnu has 60. So he gives in terms of percentage. If you convert those percentage, these are the absolute numbers actually. And Lord Shiva has 55 qualities, whereas Jivas have around 49 or 50 qualities. So Brahma is the topmost Jiva, and he has all these 50 qualities in full. And Prabhupada says that the perfection of human life is to achieve all those 50 qualities in full. Right now we may have those qualities in minute quantities. We may not be at perfection. But then the mission of human life is to perfect in those 50 qualities. So when we get that, then the human mission is fulfilled. That's what Prabhupada says, perfection. Yeah, somewhere. A living being can become godly by developing the 74% transcendental attributes in fullness, but he can never become God, never become a god like Shiva, Vishnu or Krishna. He can become a Brahma in due course. The godly living beings who are all residents of the planets in the spiritual sky are eternal associates of God in different spiritual planets. So he speaks about this in this particular. So So let us discuss about, of course, there is one more point which I wanted to mention from Jiva Goswami's this one. He says, I mean, some people argue that Krishna is mentioned as 20th incarnation. Now it is saying that it is Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can we understand? There is a contradiction. Like if you see the list of incarnations, Krishna is also spoken there. Is also spoken about there. But here again Bhagavatam mentions that no, Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Jiva Goswami gives a beautiful logic. He says that he gives I think 4 or 5 logics. One of them is that whatever is spoken at the end, that should be the concluding statement. Although there are a set of statements which are spoken before, whatever is spoken at the end, that is taken as the conclusive statement. So in that sense, because this verse in this series of verses is spoken towards the end, this has to be accepted as a conclusive statement, which overrules all other statements which were spoken before. So even in that sense, we can if somebody is interested, I encourage them to read this Krishna Sandarbha. I was reading just recently this particular portion. It is quite interesting. What kind of logical presentation Jiva Goswami makes. A series of logic actually, one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. He says, okay, somebody may argue like this, so this is our answer for that. Then he says, okay, somebody can give this argument, then this is our answer for that. And then he gives an explanation of why is this our answer. So he gives something from the, in the grammatical rules, this is what is spoken, or in the Nyaya, this is what is spoken. So he keeps on going like that. I could read, I should say, only half of it. After 3 or 4 hours of reading, I could understand only a little bit of half of it. There is still a large portion of what he speaks about this particular verse. So this actually stands out for us also. Prabhupada has given a few lectures on this particular verse. One of the lectures which really struck me was where he says about ISKCON is an incarnation of Krishna. This is quite wonderful actually. I was trying to see, okay, Krishna is the source of all incarnations. He says ISKCON is not different from Krishna actually. So it is quite wonderful to see that ISKCON as a body has all the characteristics of Krishna. If you see, isn't it? It has all the characteristics. If you carefully analyze even the 4 extra qualities of Krishna which is not present in anyone else, even in Vishnu Tattvas, they are present in our movement actually. Right? We have Bhakta Madhuri, Venu Madhuri, Leela Madhuri, Rupa Madhuri. These are all there if you carefully analyze. Every devotee who comes into ISKCON has his own story, his own story of how he came into Krishna consciousness. Is it not? It's quite interesting if you go back and analyze how I was just a wandering soul. Like in Hindi they say, Bhatakti Atma. It's just wandering around the material world. But somehow by the mercy of one devotee, we just started, with a lot of doubt, with a lot of hesitation, we started. In the beginning days, I used to have this feeling like I was stuck at 14 rounds. I was not going to 16 for a long time. I came to 14 and I stopped there. I was not ready to go to 16. Many people said, hey, 2 more rounds. You are anyway chanting 14 rounds. 2 more rounds will take only 15 minutes. What is the problem? But my feeling was, hey, if I start 16, these people will swallow me into everything. They will take me and they will say, okay, now you do this service. They will start putting everything. But then later I understood, that is for my benefit only. I was misunderstanding at that time. When devotees start showing compassion to us, we sometimes misunderstand, this fellow is exploiting me. But as such, the whole material world is exploiting us, you see, isn't it? Everybody is exploiting us. It is better to get exploited by a devotee for serving Krishna rather than being exploited by so many other people for other nonsense purposes. Right? So it is better. So if you see, ISKCON actually, Prabhupada gives in that lecture, he explains very nicely. He says that ISKCON is practically fulfilling the mission of Krishna. It is doing, if you see Paritranaya Sadhanam Vinashaya Chadushti, that also it is doing. And if you see Janma Karma Chamedi, even that is also happening, isn't it? Just by knowing how ISKCON is incorporated, we feel so much bliss. We feel as if we are hearing about Krishna's childhood, pastimes of birth and all that, isn't it? It's so beautiful how Prabhupada established this movement. And Prabhupada, boldly he was saying that ISKCON is an incarnation of Krishna. ISKCON is non-different from Krishna. So it is wonderful that we are allowed to be a part of this particular mission where we can perfect our life and also help others. Janma sadhak pari, koro parvopakar. Both of them are happening. And as such, if we if we start improving our vision, initially by Shastra Chakshu and later by Prema Chakshu, we can see Krishna's incarnations everywhere. Many people ask, there is so much adharma going on now, why Krishna is not taking birth in this particular day and age. Of course, devotees say that Krishna incarnated, Kalikala Namarupa Krishna Avatar. Anybody who accesses Krishna through the holy name actually feels the presence of Krishna so much that all the anarthas just evaporate from the heart. And imagine if all the human beings, all the responsible people in the society have no anarthas. Imagine what is it, that is as good as spiritual world. So Krishna is actually incarnating and he is doing this Dushta Sikshana and Sishta Rakshana at every point of time. He is doing that. We don't have the vision to see that. That is problem with us. It is something like Prabhupada used the example of a person sitting inside the room, closing all the doors, windows, and complains that there is no sun. Where is the sun? I am not able to see the sun. If there is sun, he should come here. Right? That is actually. In fact, if sun actually comes there, he cannot tolerate it. Right? He will die out of heat. So you have to just open the windows and doors and see, access for yourself what is actually present outside. So if you see, Krishna incarnates, of course, Prabhupada gives a list of incarnations here. What are they? The Prabhava, Vilasa, Swayam Prakasha, Tadekatmas, Swayam Rupa, and Vaibhava, Vilasa, Avatara, Avesha, Jivas. These are all, innumerable energies of Krishna, as it is said, Parasha Shaktir Vividhaiva Shuyate, Swabhavaki Jnana Balatriyacha. Krishna is unlimited. And it is inconceivable for us to understand it, isn't it? Our brains are so limited. How much can we understand with our brains? Impossible to understand. And some people try to somehow fit Krishna into their brain. It is impossible. Krishna is unlimited and ever expanding. The moment right now we are speaking about Krishna, he is already expanding into various other things. He is already expanding his attributes. He is already expanding, unlimitedly at every moment. How is it conceivable? It is inconceivable. We can't even understand. Forget about understanding Krishna. We can't conceive how a tree can be packaged into a small seed. Isn't it? With all our technology, people say that, okay, we understood now. Now we understood everything. This is the pinnacle of science. We have understood everything. Everything is understood. Okay, what is the use of your understanding if you can't imitate it? Right? If you can't just make something like that. Otherwise, what is the use of your understanding? How much did you really understand? But then we can't do that. We can't produce so many things in this world. People say we produce everything artificial. We can't produce blood. Maybe with all our industries, we can't produce one rice particle in the industries. Isn't it? It has to come from the ground only. We can't do that actually. We can say a person with a true vision actually sees Krishna there, Krishna's presence there. You see, Krishna's engineering is so well. It is so what to say? It is time proof actually. Time doesn't affect these things in one sense. As long as material world exists, these things are forever present. Right? When the material world goes into unmanifested state and comes back, again these things are present. And how much ever we break our heads to understand how they are working, it is more and more challenging to us. Even today we see the universe, we see this NASA and these kind of organizations keep looking at the space 24 hours a day. And they see so many miracles are happening. And they say, okay, now we have found, what is the mystery for the last 150 years, now we cracked it. But then there are so many mysteries which you haven't identified also. And there are many mysteries actually. This is only the external energy of the Lord. This is only the external energy of Lord. Lord gives this potency to Durga to create all this, colorful things around us. And to understand this itself, human life is not sufficient actually. How much can we understand about Krishna? So whenever people ask this question that, can Krishna incarnate now? It only shows to me their, in fact, in one sense, their foolishness. At one point of time, I was also like that, Can you show me Krishna now? That actually shows our own foolishness actually, So when we hear Prabhupada's interview, sometimes Prabhupada gives a very, slapping answer. He gives, do you have capacity to understand Krishna? That's the first question he asks, right? Do we have capacity to understand Krishna? A sober person stops for a while and he thinks, do I really have capacity to understand Krishna? But then a person who is so proud, he thinks, I can understand anything, but Krishna is something, People are not able to tell me. Otherwise I can understand Krishna also. How much can we understand? It is impossible for our capacity to understand actually. How much ever we understand, Krishna is ever expanding. Krishna's leelas are ever expanding. Even with, they say that even Ananta says, speaking with his millions of mouths, still cannot glorify Krishna's pastime in one moment. How much can we understand? So that is the question. And in this world, Krishna's incarnation can be felt through the inconceivability of Krishna, right? So that is the closest we can go. That is the word which explains Krishna to the closest to our brains actually, right? Krishna is inconceivable. If we can understand that at least theoretically, then we have a chance to understand, further, right? Because when we say Krishna is inconceivable, that means we accepted we say that he is beyond the senses, he is beyond the mind, he is beyond intelligence. We can't just understand just like, you open something and read and, okay, now I understood Krishna. It is not like that. Right? He is far beyond all this because he is inconceivable. So Prabhupada gave this example of inconceivability of Krishna. Like he said that, can you people understand how a cow produces milk? So one of the disciples said, Prabhupada, cow eats grass and produces milk. What did Prabhupada say? Even a bull eats grass. Why is he not producing milk? Right? This is inconceivable level of Krishna actually. Krishna has put that particular thing in that living entity, which is impossible for us to imitate. We can't, with all our advanced technology, can't we see Krishna's incarnation there in one sense? Isn't it? Krishna is incarnating in the process of producing, turning grass into cow's milk. We actually develop that kind of vision. And as I said, this is only the material part of it. Krishna has the entire spiritual world, of which this material world is only a jail. Jail is not of the size of the city at any time, right? Jail is only one small portion of the city, where things are happening for those who are breaking the laws of the city. They are put into the jail, which is a small portion of the city. And the jail itself is so inconceivable for us. What to speak of the actual, outside world? When we come out of the jail, we feel, wow, I never thought it is like this. Like one of the lectures, my spiritual master was mentioning about one small pastime which happens in spiritual world. That Krishna, while he goes through the forests in the Vrindavan, in the Golok Vrindavan, he sees a flower, and this flower, knowing that Krishna is going to come and see me, tries to decorate herself with a lot of beauty, because there every living entity has, their choice. So the flower becomes so beautiful so that Krishna can come and see and he enjoys the beauty. And when Krishna sees that particular flower, he smiles out of happiness by seeing the flower. And by seeing Krishna smile, flower becomes even more beautiful. And by seeing flower being beautiful, Krishna smiles more. And by seeing Krishna smile, flower becomes even more beautiful. And this is an eternal pastime which keeps on going forever. Can you imagine? This small thing. Here everything deteriorates. Our bodies deteriorate, our intelligence deteriorates, everything goes down. Right? That is the nature of this material world. Time is that factor which actually pulls down everything. And that is also an energy of Krishna, isn't it? In this world, Krishna appears as time. Everyone can see that time is working. Whether you know it or not, whether you agree it or not, time is in the process of annihilating everything, isn't it? After some millenniums or whatever, even this whole planet Earth becomes dust, right? So time is actually taking away murtyum. What is that word? Murtyum sarvaharasya. Krishna says, kalosmeham lokakshayam. So that is the nature of this world, that it keeps on deteriorating. And even there we can see that Krishna mercifully incarnates as time, just to remind us that this is not your place. You can't live happily forever here. People are trying to create so many things, so many kinds of technologies where they promise, saying that, oh, now you will not have this problem. Now you will not have this problem. Then one more problem. Now you will not have this problem. But what we have seen is that every solution to the problem is a bigger problem than the original problem itself. Right? It keeps on going like that. So this is how our intelligence works, because we can't see future. We can't understand what is the consequence. 100 years back, some person invented automobile engines. What is happening now? People are trying to get rid of it. Then they say, okay, odd even formula, or whatever. You know this ordinal formula which is applicable in, which is being applied in Delhi and China, where these diesel engines are too many. So one day only odd numbered cars can come out. The other day only even numbered cars can come out. The others cannot come. It is ruled because there is so much pollution. So one person thought, who will tolerate this horse, smell of the horse stool? Let us invent horseless carriage, and that's what is today. It is there. Automobiles are there, but at what cost? That fellow would have never thought this is going to create so much pollution, so much that it is actually devouring earth in one sense, right? So this is how our intelligence works. But Krishna's intelligence is not like that. When he does something, it is perfect. You can't find any loophole in that. Any loophole. With our intelligence or even with Brahma's intelligence, it is impossible to find. That is how Krishna actually is inconceivable. Krishna's material world itself is so beautiful. How beautiful must be the spiritual world, right? Where everything is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. And although we have discussed a lot about all these incarnations till now, many devotees have spoken in the last few weeks. I was just trying to focus on this particular aspect of Krishna's inconceivability, because this is also one of the most important things to understand. Unless we lose faith on our senses, to understand Krishna, we can't really start to understand Krishna, isn't it? Does it make sense? Yeah. Because we have so much faith on our senses. We think that with our senses we can understand everything. Unfortunately, it is not true, because our senses are so limited. Our mind itself is so limited. What to speak of understanding Krishna? We can't even understand the external, bahya energy of Krishna fullest. Right? Once we understand that we are limited, once we become sober with that understanding, we become humble by that understanding and start looking through the scriptures. Okay, if I can't understand what is the source, then people come to read Bhagavatam with that attitude, saying that, I can't understand, let me take knowledge from here. Let me seek shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. When we do that, then we start getting revelations one after the other. Okay, this is the inconceivable nature of Krishna. That's why if you see, Sukadeva Goswami explains about the Virat Purusha in one full canto almost, isn't it? He explains about various aspects of Virat Purusha. And then that is only the material, external nature of Lord. And then he goes one by one into the internal potencies of the Lord, like his other incarnations like Vilasa, Vaibhava and all that. So we are also inconceivable, isn't it? Our bodies are also inconceivable. Even Jiva is inconceivable actually. It's inconceivable. Krishna says in Gita also that it is difficult to understand what is the origin of this soul, what is the nature of this soul. Although we say, okay, we are also same in quality as Krishna, that is good. That is what we are. For that we have to understand what is Krishna. Right? Then we can understand, okay, in quality we are same. It is not possible for us to understand. So it is good to accept the right source of knowledge and just follow that. We are not asking to blindly follow that. We can always question, we can always inquire. But as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, these three things, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te gnana gnanina tattva darshana. There Krishna speaks about three qualities. What are they? Pranipata, pariprashna, seva. When we have these three things, then we can actually get the true knowledge. Pranipata means first surrender. Surrender is kind of negative word in today's connotations, but it is not. Surrender is very sweet. What we are speaking is of taking shelter of. In fact, surrender doesn't mean put a gun and say surrender. No, that is not surrender. Right? That is forcing. Whereas what Krishna is saying is seek shelter of me. Right? I will offer you protection. Krishna also says that many verses in Bhagavad Gita as well as Srimad Bhagavatam. He speaks so many hope-giving verses. There are many hope-giving verses in Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes we lose hope, we read this verse, we become so joyful. Kauntaya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Right? And then he speaks about Tesham nivanam pampardam aham ajnana jantamah. Is it not a hope-giving verse? Aham ajnana jantamah nashayami atmabhavasto gnanadipena bhasukha. So Krishna is there to protect us. We only have to seek his shelter. That is the first thing. And the second is pariprashna, inquire. Inquire from the right source. Try to understand right knowledge. Don't accept things blindly. People have this, like I remember Chaitanya Charan Prabhu saying, blind faith is dangerous. Blind faithlessness is also dangerous. Today's world actually people have blind faithlessness actually. They don't know the reason of why they are faithless. Right? They simply say, okay, I don't believe in God because I don't see. But there are many things which you don't see but you still believe. For example, their own brain. Right? They believe it is existing. I have my brain, but where is it? Can you show me? No, they can't show. Right? So similarly, they have different ways of understanding such things. So why don't we apply same thing in understanding Krishna also? Why don't we inquire from the right source? And then it doesn't stop there. Inquiring and getting answer is not the end of spiritual knowledge actually. When we serve Vaishnavas, when we serve those who are close to Krishna, when we serve those who are dear to Krishna, at that time that knowledge actually digests within us. Right? That becomes Vijnana. From Jnana, Vijnana. Right? It becomes Vijnana. We get realized knowledge. And with that realization, when we see this world, it is completely different picture than what we are perceiving it right now. Right? Unless we have this, shelter or seeking shelter, inquiring and then serving. When we serve with an intention to please the other person, that actually comes on us as a blessing from the other person, isn't it? So when we serve the other person with an intention to please him, when we serve the other devotee to please him, when that devotee actually feels that this person wants to please me, there is some, the blessings transfer, from that person's happiness into our existence actually. And that is what actually makes us closer to Krishna. Nothing else, isn't it? Vaishnava's happiness makes us closer to Krishna. That's it, very simple. Right? When we serve, when we do the seva, in this particular context, of course, Krishna speaks about the Gnani, the person who is in true knowledge. You go and serve him. So when we serve them, when they become pleased with our pranipata and pariprashna, and they accept our service, we actually get the true knowledge, and then we can understand these verses. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. It's not, otherwise it is not so easy. It is impossible actually. How much can we understand, as we started this talk with that? How much can we understand? What is our capacity to understand Krishna? It's impossible. It's better to accept this verse, try to understand what Prabhupada is trying to say, seek guidance from devotees. How can I understand this? Not only this verse, it is applicable everywhere. How can I understand this? What is your realization of this verse? When we share that, we actually benefit from that. We actually get to understand what is the true essence of the meaning of these verses. Otherwise, they just remain okay. Even if we accept it, we say, okay, Krishna's to Bhagavan's mind. We don't have any realization of it. But then, when we actually seek devotees' shelter, they actually tell us, okay, this is how you should understand. It's not that Krishna is incarnating only in these 27 forms or whatever. He is incarnating at every moment. Right? He is incarnating at every moment in our lives. As Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Kalikale Namarupa Krishna Avatar. So even in the holy name, if you chant the holy names, it's the experience of everyone that who started chanting the holy names over a period of time, they started experiencing Krishna, isn't it? Those who started chanting, everyone have that experience, isn't it? They have the experience of Krishna. It may not be complete, it may not be to the fullest extent, but is chanting not blissful? It is, right? Maybe we know that we have, sometimes, like I was hearing this example of somebody says, oh, chanting is so boring. It is something like you put a plastic cover over your tongue. Wrap your tongue with a plastic cover and try to eat sweet rice. Now, how can you understand the taste of it? Right? Krishna is actually present. We don't have the capacity to see. The same problem what we were discussing before, right? Krishna is present everywhere actually. Like they also give the example of, Prabhu, thoda mercy de do. This is what people, these are common, what we say, the lingo or whatever, right? These people keep talking about like this in ISKCON, right? Prabhu, I need some mercy. Actually, mercy is there everywhere. Prabhupada used to say that. Mercy is available everywhere. Isn't it? We only should know how to tap that mercy. Right? Mercy, just like these TV signals are there everywhere. We only should have the right instrument to capture the signal. If that instrument is not there, you can't. So, the patrata has to be there. Right? With that patrata, we can understand these things. That Krishna, when we have patrata which is empty, then we want to fill it with mercy of Vaishnavas, mercy of Krishna. The right attitude actually creates that patrata. The right attitude. That's why Prabhupada boldly says in Nectar of Instruction that, advancement of a devotee depends on his attitude. Right? It is all about our attitudes. How we maintain our attitude. That creates our patrata. The bigger vessel you have, the bigger mercy you can actually store for yourself. And which can help us realize all these various aspects of Krishna's incarnations. It may be although these 27 incarnations are wonderful, and Bhagavatam goes on describing about each and every incarnation over a period of time. It is simply what happened in different manvantaras. That is what Shukadeva Goswami is basically speaking about. Sometimes, or so many long sections, there is only this is the person and his son is this, his son is this, his son is this, his son. At one point he says, okay, stop. Here there is a person who is worth describing. Let us say Ambarish Maharaj or Dhruva Maharaj. There is a whole lineage, and one point he stops. Prahlad Maharaj. And then he describes about the next generation. He says, okay, stop. There is Bali Maharaj, the same lineage, right? Why is he speaking? Because these people actually lived the life of Bhagavatam. And by understanding their lives, we can also understand Bhagavatam. We can also understand what is this Krishna's incarnation. Why is Krishna Swayam Bhagavan? Right? It's not that we simply accept just like that. We need not actually. Although if we simply accept also, that is wonderful, right? It is wonderful to accept Krishna as Supreme Personality of God. But then when we go through their lives, we understand why we have to accept Krishna as Supreme Lord. And we see the life of Prahlad Maharaj. He was feeling the presence of Krishna everywhere, isn't it? We don't feel so much, right? We feel Krishna is closing his eyes sometimes. At least when I am doing something nonsense, Krishna is not looking at me. We feel, but when we see that Krishna is opening his eyes and seeing at me constantly, we can't do any nonsense actually, isn't it? We can't even think of offending a Vaishnava. We can't even think of thinking bad about others, right? Because Krishna is watching. Because we don't have that realization. Because we don't have the realization that Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan and Krishna is the source of all incarnations. Krishna is the source of everything as such, not only incarnations, isn't it? Anything we see, even this body is a product of, the material nature, which is energy of Krishna, isn't it? The mind is energy of Krishna. Whatever we are using here, whatever we can conceive and whatever things which are beyond our conception, everything is owned and controlled by Krishna completely, right? And that is how Krishna is the Swayam Bhagavan, right? So we do these sessions for boys after 1 year of their Krishna consciousness. We have these sessions called Faith and Doubt. These are very wonderful sessions, right? So there is a series of sessions like that, some 3-4 sessions. They go on like 2 hours, 3 hours. So first there is some doubt, and there is a reason why we put faith in what Scripture says, and then we resolve so many different doubts which people generally get. So one of the examples, even before starting this, there is a session called Can Faith Be Reasonable? That's what we generally speak for 1.5 hours. In that there are various examples, which are given by Srila Prabhupada actually. So one of the examples is this train example, right? There are so many bogies in the train, and there is only one engine. That engine pulls all the bogies. If you see only at the 7th, 8th and 9th bogies, it appears that the source of 7th bogie being pulled is the previous one, the 6th one, right? And then the 9th one or the 8th one is a follower. So we say that there is a immediate cause and there is a remote cause. Like for the 8th bogie, maybe the 4th bogie is a remote cause, it is pulling, and there is an ultimate cause. That is Krishna, the engine, the source of everything, right? So science only looks at immediate causes, to some extent to the remote causes. They can never see what is the ultimate cause, because he is beyond our senses, he is beyond our understanding actually. So in that sense, if you see anything, that's why Krishna, when we say, Krishna, what is that? Sarva Karana Karana, we say, right? He is the source of all causes, he is the cause of all causes, not only the effects, right? That is how he is the ultimate cause of everything. He is the ultimate cause. So when we have a limited vision of looking at only so many bogies, we can't actually understand there is an engine which is pulling everything, and the engine doesn't require anything else. It is a self-sustained, self-moving engine, right? Self-moving body. So that is what Krishna Prabhupada also says here. Where is it? I don't see it here. But Krishna Prabhupada says in this that Krishna is the source of all incarnations, and there is nothing from whom Krishna comes. So this is the common question by many atheists. They say that you say Krishna is Supreme Lord. Who is the source of Krishna? If you say everything has source, Krishna also must have source. So when Prabhupada was asked this question, what did he say? You know what he said? If there is some source for Krishna, we accept him as God. Very simple, right? If there is some source for God, whom we are calling as God, we accept him as God, the source as God. So now you keep on tracing. You will come to an end, just like you keep on tracing from the last bogey. You keep on tracing what is the source of this movement, what is the source, what is the source. You will come to engine. After that there is nothing, right? It's a simple thing to understand. So the engine is on its own, where the bogies need to be moved by the engine, but the engine doesn't need anything. It is independent. Similarly, Krishna is independent. Krishna doesn't need somebody else to be, to create him. If there was somebody who is creating Krishna, we accept him as God, right? It is as simple as that. But then there is no source for Krishna. He is the ultimate source. That is why we accept him as Krishna, as God. And that is what the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam says. Right? Janmadesya dhanmayada taktasyadeshma vigyasvara. He is the supreme. There he is not mentioning about, Krishna. He is saying these are the attributes, these are the various attributes. You find all these attributes in a person, you accept him as God. Right? That is how it is. Right? There are many more things which I wanted to discuss, but till the time I will stop here. Anyone have any?
In this purport, so Prabhupada regards Lord Shiva as a God. But Prabhupada knows that Krishna is only God, and there are only three things: Jiva, Shiva, and God. So why he regarded Lord Shiva as a God?
Jiva?
There are living entity can be called as the Ishwar, that Krishna himself, and then Jivas, and other is Shiva, right? So which is different from Jivas. So why Prabhupada regard Shiva as a God? Shiva is not a God, right? He's a...
Yeah, as such, Prabhupada at many places say that, is there a difference between Lord Shiva and Krishna? He says no, there is no difference. But is there no difference? He says no, there is difference. Right? So it is inconceivable again. Like, Lord Shiva is not completely Vishnu. But for when we see in terms of this material world, we can see that Lord Vishnu and Shiva both are almost same. Right? We don't say exactly identical, but he is not the Jiva Tattva actually. Shambhu Tattva is different.
Yes.
Right? Shambhu Tattva is different. It is not Jiva Tattva, whereas Brahma is considered as...
Lord Shiva came from Brahma.
Yeah, in this world, he comes as Rudra in the material world, but when he is eternally present in the Kailasa, he is Sadashiva. Right? For him, Brahma is not the source.
Okay.
In this world, in this world, like Varaha also came from Brahma. Okay. Right? But Varaha is independent. He is independent personality of God, supreme personality of God. Right? Although in this world he appears through Brahma. It is like that. So that is the best example which Shastra explains. The example of difference between milk and curd. They are not same, but they are same. Right? So Lord Shiva is someone like that. So when Vishnu allows himself to be touched by the modes of material nature, he becomes Shiva. It is like that. Vishnu is untouchable. Modes of material nature cannot touch him. Right? But when he allows himself to be touched by the material nature, by the modes of material, just like the milk is being touched by some sour piece of some lemon or something, or tamarind, right? Then it becomes curd. So similarly, when Vishnu allows himself to be touched by the modes of material, he starts working with the modes of nature, right? So that time he is Lord Shiva. Otherwise, he is untouched.
So there is no difference between Krishna and Shiva is actually same.
Yeah, again, it is like curd and milk. We can't say it is same, we can't say it is different.
Yeah.
Right? That is why Prabhupada says he is not in between also. He is neither an avatara nor an avesha nor in between them. Right? So it's very difficult to understand the position of Lord Shiva also in one sense. Why? Because as I said, he is not Jivatma, but at the same time he is not fully God also. He is in the words of Prabhupada, I think he is 84% God. Okay. Right? 84 or whatever percentage it is. 84% God. So he doesn't have all the attributes of Krishna, all the qualities of Krishna. But then he is also eternal. His dham is also eternal. But it is not completely into Vaikuntha. Right? Yeah, it is there for a purpose.
I think there is actually two things are coming to me. Prabhu is explaining about the third and this life. It's not very easy for us to understand. That's what I have heard from my teacher, Vasana Maharaj. He gave a very wonderful, and if you're really want to understand the technical details, I can send you that link. He has spoken during the Dwarka Yatra at Somnath Temple, explaining that. And there was another very intellectual and nicely explaining the Shiva Tattva by His Grace Radhika Ramanatha. I don't know if you know him. He is the son of Arudha Mataji. He has been homeschooled since young age, and he has completed his PhD by 15, 16 something. He went to college at the age of 12, and then he did his PhD from Oxford. And he's a professor now, 27 or 28, very intellectual. And he has done actually his thesis on, PhD thesis on Jiva Goswami, is one of the Sanghatas. Very amazing person. He has actually spoken, so you could hear those, as such, even after hearing that, I still can't understand completely.
Okay, please forward.
Sure. On that same topic, Prabhu, thank you so much for such a nice, sharing of your realizations on this verse. It's an amazing verse as such, instead of blind faith, really trying to understand from the sequence of all the incarnations, how we can see the connection. It's really amazing. And I was really struck with that one thing you mentioned, when we start losing faith in our senses, then we can start to understand. We are reading Sri Upanishad as part of our Bhakti Shastri study. It's the whole concept is Krishna is inconceivable when we are trying to understand Ishvara. But yet, as you were speaking, I was understanding that mentality or attitude that, okay, I have got certain intellectual capacity, I can understand, I can crack this, I can, really churn this or try to understand Prabhupada's purports in different ways, hear multiple lectures, and somehow understand. And apparently it seems that I'm able to understand, but after a certain time, if I go back, it's kind of getting evaporated. So it's really bringing to that point, as long as I'm placing my faith in my own senses and my own limited capacity of brain, it's just not possible to understand Krishna. So very amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Ishopanishad, I think, introduction is full of this part on Prabhupada's lecture was recorded and put as introduction.
Yeah.
He speaks about, from the beginning itself, he speaks about the deficiencies we have,
right.
4 senses and all.
4 defects,
Yeah, I think that is quite important to understand. In the beginning, very beginning, we should understand that.
Yeah.
There are when I do this Discover Yourself course, the first session, can a scientist believe in God, is just to create some interest in the audience. That okay, there is something beyond. We should to create an interest to understand what is that something beyond. The second session itself is getting eyes to see God, where the goal is to make people lose faith on their senses. It is something, because otherwise we can't actually understand the higher things. The more we keep thinking that I have that capacity. Yes, we have capacity. Krishna has given us capacity, but we should use it in a particular way to understand His knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
Where the consciousness,
Yeah.
is it like
Yes.
my own capacity? I
Yes.
mean, I kind of understand that, okay, I cannot understand, but at the same time, it's kind of so subtle, like
Yes.
so strongly
Yeah.
imbibed.
Even I have that tendency of trying to read the same purport from different angles.
Yeah.
In one sense it is good, but that is not realization actually.
Yeah.
That is actually my own tendency coming into Srimad Bhagavatam. My own foolish tendency. We can't understand Bhagavatam like that. Of course you know how to understand, but my experience is that how much ever I study like that, it is impossible to understand. When we read a purport in a very simple English, what Prabhupada has given, go and serve some Vaishnava, that actually gets so deep into our heart that oh, this is what Prabhupada is trying to say. Everything starts revealing to us in one sense. If that is not there, as long as we have our intellectual, faith on our intellectual abilities, it actually, we may have so many intellectual abilities, but as long as we have unflinching, unconditional faith only on our intellectual abilities, then we actually don't get much out of it. Rather, we should have faith on Krishna's mercy. We should have faith on Vaishnava's mercy. When we have faith on that, when our faith on these spiritual things exceeds our faith on intelligence, our own intelligence, we can actually grasp much more than what, like Bhakti Maharaj actually says this statement. It's quite interesting. I used to keep it on my wall for so many days. I used to kept it, in my back in India. It was there. So he says that when our desire to serve exceeds our capacity to serve, then we are given empowerment. Right? It is to some extent. It's not exactly verbatim, but it's a beautiful statement. Right? When our desire to serve exceeds our capacity to serve, then what we get is called empowerment. So that is not what we have. That has to be given by someone.
What is that? What we get is?
What we become empowered to actually carry out that service. Empowerment. Right? We are not qualified. We don't have the capacity to serve, but we have a desire to serve. Right? When our desire to serve exceeds our capacity to serve, then we actually become empowered to carry out that service. I think similar thing applies here also. Right? When our desire to understand, is far more than our capacity to understand. It is obviously, right? It has to be, ideally speaking. Sometimes we think that I have a capacity to understand, and this is what it can be understood. There is nothing beyond this. But that is our foolishness in one sense. We should understand, okay, there is much more. This is Krishna, one verse, because it is Krishna. Bhagavatam is Krishna, it is unlimited. Right? One verse, as I said, 10 days, 20 days, even eternity, it is not sufficient in one sense. Right? And whatever you said is true, Mataji, that intellectual capacity. I started losing faith on that slowly, actually.
And Krishna is kind. I was actually thinking, very grateful. In these discussions, somehow, even though we know, he sends these reminders once in a while for me to, reset. Okay, where am I? What's the direction I'm going? And recheck the GPS and go to the correct direction.
That's true. That's
he's really
Krishna
so
keeps
kind,
leading.
so
Yes.
kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, can you just repeat the sentence again? Did you say?
When our desire to serve exceeds our capacity to serve, we become empowered to carry out that service. I think you can find out Bhaktitirtha Maharaj's quote on service.
That's really hope-giving statement.
Yeah. So I think this is not verbatim.
Okay.
Maharaj said something else. I don't exactly remember
No,
that.
I-
But this is the essence of it.
This is too true.
Prabhupada ki jai.